Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot Niblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to give you all the best streamers and ad options for next week so you can start planning early. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. Who can say if he's changed me for the better, but he has changed me for good. Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
You're definitely better, buddy. But it's not because of me. You got to take some credit for that. All right. You've been working hard. You're a beautiful and unique snowflake. That is confirmed. Buddy, I feel good. All right. I love this is my favorite show. I get jacked up for this. So I'm excited about that. It's been an interesting week, big news day here. So I'm looking forward to getting into that with you. And I learned something new about you today, buddy. I learned that you love the musical Wicked, and you got some pipes on you, buddy. Can you just spin us a little song there? What do you got? You got anything there?
I don't think anybody wants to hear that. That's not what they're coming to us for here, Blake.
Maybe that's patron content, right? Yeah, that's
We'll keep that behind the paywall for
okay,
sure. Maybe
exactly.
you've tackled some high notes here or there on the podcast once upon a time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe. Definitely behind the paywall, we'll do a little duet. All right. Because I haven't seen the movie, but there's two of them, right? So it's like it's a duet situation, right? Okay.
There is a duet situation that could happen. Yeah, my wife and I finally got to see it. We're both big fans of the musical, so we got to see the new movie that came out. Got to see it tonight. So we're excited about that. Tomorrow, I guess today, by the time anybody's listening to this, I'm going to Toronto to see the PWHL game, Toronto Scepters game, with a bunch of the Apples and Genos squad, Mark Barber, Ryan, and we got Mike, and we got Nimmer. We're going to be out there. Josh is coming. It's going to be a good time. So, I'm excited about that. I'm also excited to get into these Newsies, buddy, and you were right. It was a hell of a day in the NHL news world. Why don't you bring us in?
Hell of a day, buddy, and a hell of a segue from the ultimate professional Nate Groot Niblick. Okay, let's get into it. There's big news, not so much fantasy relevant, so we'll talk about that. But obviously, the big thing here: Jacob Trouba, captain of the New York Rangers, moving on to the Anaheim Ducks. Oh my God. Why does anyone go to the Anaheim Ducks? You leave the Anaheim Ducks, right? I mean, this clearly says to me he cares about his family more than he cares about winning, right? Because Anaheim's beautiful. Let's agree on that. They got a nice stadium, wicked jerseys, but I mean, what's going on over there? I don't know. But yeah, he got traded there for Urho Vakanainen. I'll edit that later. And a draft pick. So it's obviously they knew he was going to get moved. They had basically threatened that he was going to get put onto waivers if he didn't accept one of these trades that they sort of worked out. So it's best for everybody, but kind of an odd situation. Trouba, obviously for fantasy, all his value is tied up in category leagues, right? He's a big time beefer, no question there. I think he has some more offense that he can provide, and he just hasn't really been given the opportunity. That wasn't his role in New York. We'll see what happens in Anaheim. Like, where do you think he lines up? I don't think personally he's going to touch power play there. But what do you think his role is going to be?
Yeah, I think he makes sense. As they got so many young defensemen there. It would make sense for him to line up alongside one of them, maybe. Just be that guy to to stand there with them and help them along and take the next step. Be that defensive zone guy. Whether or not he can still execute that at a high level, the level that he once had to his game, is up for debate. Certainly, he's had his ups and downs in New York, but that's what I think they're envisioning anyway when they see Jacob Trouba come onto the market and they make a deal like this for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that has his own gravity for sure, and if the Ducks ever make the playoffs, this guy is a beast in the playoffs. Like, he's a frightening person, just amazing when it comes to hits. So, yeah, it's an interesting piece there.
Imagine coming across the blue line there, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this is the team with Jacob Truba and Radko Gudas on
It's like just wheel back around behind the net a few
it."
times. You know what I mean? Wait for their shift to be over, and then you head in, right? But yeah, you got to keep your head on a swivel with these guys out there. That's just an all beefer back end right there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm glad that Anaheim does get that veteran presence. So we'll see. I don't think for fantasy, I'm not adding him anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, right? Let's wait and see what happens. But in other news, there on in New York, Igor Shesterkin, basically they're doing the opposite of zero G over there in real life, and they signed him to the biggest contract any goalie has ever signed. 8 years, $92 million. What? How do you spend that much money on a goalie and try and win? I mean, obviously they didn't retain anything on Jacob Trouba, so that's kind of a win, right? They were able to get rid of him. Also, Barclay Goodrow earlier on in the year, they didn't retain anything there, so those are a couple wins. But I don't know, when you have this much big of a percentage tied up in your goalie, like how are you supposed to maneuver around that? Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that big signing there?
Yeah, I mean, you may be shocked to learn that I'm not a huge fan of signing goalies to
Hmm.
massive long-term contracts, especially ones that have a 305 goals against average and 908 save percentage on the season. Yeah, I just think that goalie is that position, even at the NHL level, where you can find a guy if you try hard enough. It may not be in the season you need it, which is sometimes the tough part, and I
Yeah.
understand why they want to lock down a guy that they feel gives them the best chance to be that guy that season. But like, look at what the Leafs are doing with Joseph Wall and Anthony Stolarz. Yeah, I think there's just so many evidences we've seen of teams getting it done with other goalies that it's tough to stomach spending 11.5 million on your goalie, and now you got to figure out how everything else fits in around that, rather than build it from the front end and try to fit in your goalies after.
Yeah, it's rough stuff. I mean, they still got guys like Mika Zibanejad, who's massively underachieving this year. Chris Kreider. These guys are under contract for pretty big money. So things are interesting there in New York. Obviously, a big shakeup is coming, and I think there's still probably more to come. So keep your eyes peeled. They could have just went out and signed Kevin Lankinen. Oh, buddy, this man's a legend. I should mention I'm going to talk about him, but yeah, Thatcher Demko was activated off the IR. He backed up Kevin Lankinen tonight, and Lankinen got another dub. This is going to be an interesting piece here in Vancouver. I mean, what do you think moving forward? Kevin Lankinen obviously playing out of his mind. Demko coming off a major injury. He's not going back into workhorse status. How do you see their goalie split moving forward?
Yeah, I could see a 50-50 at least for the first bit. I mean, Demko is the guy. There's no doubt about that. Lankinen has had a nice stretch here, but Demko is the guy there for Vancouver. So as much as he can take, he will take eventually. But
Yep.
I do think they're going to be extremely cautious with him when he comes back.
Yep, makes absolute sense. I think Lankinen is still totally viable, even with Demko back in the mix. So don't drop Kevin Lankinen for now, folks. That's my 2 cents on that. Also, sticking with the Canucks, JT Miller is back skating, which is really good news that like he's ramping up. So the Canucks have also said they have, quote unquote, a plan for JT Miller. So that all sounds good to me. JT Miller was also named to the U.S. squad there in the Four Nations Cup. So I think, it could be that there was some speculation that he might even return tonight, which is Friday against Columbus, but obviously that didn't happen. I think next week we might be able to see him. So just get ready to activate JT Miller. That's a good thing. And the Canucks have held their own in his absence. So nice to see. Just keep your eyes peeled there. Let's move over to Buffalo. Rasmus Dahlin is injured. He's dealing with back spasms, but it sounds like this is something kind of similar to what he was dealing with in the preseason there, and he's still being evaluated. So I think there's a chance he does miss a little bit of time. And I just wanted to bring this up because the Buffalo power play is something we're going to have to keep our eye on. We got the Power Glove, Owen Power and Bowen Byram, both taking their turn quarterbacking that top power play. Who do you think comes out on top in that matchup? Because they both got a crack at it in the last game there.
Yeah, it sounded like Power came out there first, but then Byram got kind of the later opportunity. So yeah, maybe they go back to Byram to start now. Um, yeah, I think it's still up in the air. I don't think it's totally decided one way or another. I guess right now I would lean Byram.
Yep, there you go. I would too, just because he got that last piece. But I think Power should already be owned. He's putting up enough numbers right now where I think he's valuable. So yeah, that's our 2 cents on that. Over to Anaheim. We talked about Trouba. We should have talked about this just for continuity, but Jimmy Crackcorn and I don't care. We're talking about Trevor Zegras. He is injured. He had kind of a non-contact injury again, lower body, didn't look good. His leg buckled underneath him, and then he immediately called the trainer out on the ice. So we're waiting on an official update there, but he's going to be out. He's going to be out for long term. I mean, they haven't said as much, but yeah, I'm imagining it's going to be, weeks, not days, if not months, right? So that stinks for them. But good news is Leo Carlsson is back out on the ice skating in a red non-contact jersey. So his return could come in the next week and a bit. And that late night beauty Cam Fowler was activated off the IR. It's beautiful stuff. He got a couple shots in him early on. He's feeling good. He's out on the dance floor. He's doing the little kicks. He's just rocking it out there. And he picked up an assist tonight, Cam Fowler. So there you go. I don't know. Whatever. Anaheim is going to be an interesting team to watch just with this Trouba stuff. So check him out. But yes, thanks for Zegras. He was playing well. Other big news, Chicago. They fired Luke Richardson, which, I think we could all see coming. This guy was on borrowed time, in my opinion. So yeah, it just went from bad to worse, and they couldn't really, right the ship. So now their new head coach is Anders Sorensen, who I don't really know a lot about. But I was reading some of the tweets here from Ben Pope, who's a beat writer there, just talking about some of the tactical adjustments this guy's going to make. And, this is a direct quote, but he's talking about encouraging the D to be up in the rush, right? Which is something I always like to hear, right? So that could equal something good for the pickle, Alex Vlasic, right? Who's, one of their better offensive defensemen. He's their power play 1 quarterback, right? And just encouraging more offense, right? There, it sounds like he wants to focus on offense a little more, which, yeah. Do you ever notice with coaches, they're either we got to shore up the defense, or, we got to shore up the offense? Is you have to shore up everything. It's it's one or the other. I don't know. But another thing that Sorensen said that I liked is kind of sticking with lines, right? Trying to build chemistry. He said something, chemistry is a big part of that. Wants to be have patience with some guys there. So I think they're going to look to run some lines out there and keep them together, which is something that Luke Richardson really didn't do. He was throwing the lines in a blender, and I think that was sort of, his death, the death of him there. So anyways, any thoughts on the Chicago coaching change?
Yeah, I do think it can't be worse, right? At this point. So any change there is probably going to be maybe it's, net neutral, but maybe it's a little bit positive. So yeah, I think you have to view change when you're running this poorly. You have to view change as a potential positive.
Yep, absolutely. And even another piece, sounds like the new head coach is meeting privately with Connor Bedard and literally being like, what do you need? Let's get you what you need so you can get the biz out there, right? Because this guy's an elite talent and hasn't really been put in positions to succeed so far this year. And he hasn't been playing to his standards either. One thing I did want to mention as well, they did practice a power play 1 there. Connor Bedard, Toivo Teravainen, the pickle Alex Vlasic, Ryan Donato was on the bumper, and Bertuzzi was net front. So doesn't mean that's going to be what it is in his first game in, but that's a good indication, I think. And yeah, those are players that I think, are reasonable to roster at this point. In Minnesota, let's move over there. Joel Eriksson Ek was injured, now on the IR. So obviously Rossi popped off tonight. He's on that top line with Boldy and Cap. Jeez. Nice spot to be. I picked him up in a couple spots because I'm just so smart, and modest as well. So I love that. But anyways, I did want to talk about the Wild power play changes with Eriksson Ek out. They were rolling out Cap, Marco Rossi, Boldy, Marcus Foligno, and Jared Spurgeon. The Spurge, he spurged everywhere for an assist. All right. And then they got the mop and they cleaned it up. It was fine. But so Faber loses a little bit of value there. Also, Ryan Hartman not being on power play 1 is interesting. So just keep an eye on that. But I just thought that was something I'd like to share with you. And then lastly, over to Vegas, Mark Stone is back. He was back tonight. Hi, Mark. And, we're happy to see him. Of course, he, comes out and the power play just goes ballistic again. And Mark Stone is a legend among men. So that's all I have to say about that. Nate, you got to talk to us about the schedule. We got to attack that thing.
All right, let's attack that schedule. Coming up here, we get into Monday with 3 games, Tuesday 11 games, Wednesday 2 games, Thursday 14 games, Friday 1 game, Saturday 15 games, and Sunday 5 games. It is, yeah, it's a pretty heavy night schedule. It's a pretty light night schedule all the way till the Sunday. In total, it's 51 games played. It's a normal week in terms of the actual total number of games being played. There's only one team with a Sunday Monday back to back. So if you're looking to pick up somebody for your Sunday, that also gives you a little boost heading into the week. You can look to the New York Rangers, who do provide that Sunday Monday back to back. No teams with a Monday Tuesday back to back. There are three teams with a Monday Wednesday, both of those early week off nights. Anaheim, Buffalo, and the New York Rangers there. One team with Wednesday, Friday off nights. That's Ottawa. One team with Friday, Sunday off nights, avoiding that super heavy 15 game Saturday. That's Carolina. Really tough end of the week here. 15 game Saturday, as I mentioned, 14 game Thursday. Going to make it really tough to get anything streamed in consistently over that back end. Might be a situation where your best look is an early week stream and then maybe like goalie stream Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, somewhere in there, wherever you can find it. You're going to have to be a little creative with how you get it done this week again. We got spoiled this week, the week that we're in currently, with a really great streaming schedule, lots of teams playing on off nights and stuff like that. It's back to the grind next week. You got to probably make your moves early in the week. And then, yeah, like I said, maybe you find like single game goalie streams in the back end, or maybe you can find, that perfect Carolina streamer somewhere and you can make it all work. Any notes on the schedule here, Blake?
No, just I mean, it just seems like schedules are like this now. I remember 2 years ago, it felt like, yeah, we could really stream our brains out, but now it seems
Yeah,
like every other week it's this garbage.
it does kind of feel that way. I haven't looked at it to see if that's actually true, but I agree it does feel that way, at least in the early going this season so far. All right, Blake, I'm going to kick it back to you. Lower some expectations for us.
Oh yeah, they're very low, and let's keep them that way. All right, that's how we like it here at Apples and Ginos. We keep them low, and then we overproduce, right? So it's we look like heroes, right, Nate?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's just business savvy right there. Anyways, let's get the biz on this. There are two teams that have the clear worst schedule for week number 10, and it's the Dallas Stars and the Washington Capitals. They both play 2 games, 0 off nights. And both their games, Dallas and Washington, play on the heavy Thursday and the heavy Saturday. So if you got
Yeah.
streamers from these teams, they're not going to play, right? So you could have a week where your guys are not getting anything. So we got to look at some of these players and see what we're doing. So to start us off, let's start in Dallas, and I think we got to talk about Thomas Harley here as a player that I think is on the bubble. This is a guy that has not really achieved what I think we thought he might achieve this year. He's on a 39-point pace, only 2 points in his last 5, and the metrics aren't really very good. Like, it's just he's power play 2. I don't know. Like, to me, well, tell me what you think. Thomas Harley, let's talk about him first. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think he's maybe been a little underserved. He got a 30% IPP on the season. I think he's better than that. How much is up for debate. And he does have a 13.9% on ice shooting percentage, which is probably a touch high. So maybe it does even out, and he is kind of more of a 40-point guy. I think he could probably. I mean, we have a small sample size still in the NHL with Thomas Harley, especially with him at this kind of broken out level where he's skating 22 minutes a night. So I don't want to over predict or with a lot of overconfidence what we think Thomas Harley is at this stage in his career. But 3.9% shooting percentage, I think he might be able to do a little bit better than that. So he might be like a 10 goal, 40-point guy with power play 2 in Dallas. And I think he should be pretty happy with that in a lot of formats. But you are going to definitely have stretches where it doesn't feel good, where he goes 5 games with only 1 point, where he goes six
Yeah.
games with only 2 points. And yeah, you're going to have stretches like that throughout the season for any of these guys. And it's really about what your league demands that you roster or don't roster. And in a situation like this, there's probably going to be somebody out there. We'll obviously get into the teams that have good streaming schedules next week. But there's probably going to be a player out there that is going to give you better results in maybe like 3 off nights than you can get out of Thomas Harley's 2 games next week.
Yep. Yeah, he's a player on the bubble for sure. I've got him in the 14-teamer cupful, and it's going to be hard to drop because he's a really quality defenseman. But it's gonna hurt. You know what I mean? Like just having 2 games of Harley there. I got to make sure he does get into those games. But yeah, there are 3 forwards on Dallas that I do want to talk about: Mason Marchment, Jamie Benn, and put some stank on it, Logan Stankoven. Who I think is going to be the prime benefactor of this Tyler Seguin injury. He's the one moving up to that line, and he does have chemistry with Mason Marchment and Matt Duchene. So, I mean, talk to me about Marchment, Ben, and Stankoven, and are they are these players that you're considering moving off of in this 2-game week?
Yeah, I think you have to at least consider it. It depends on your league for sure. Like Mason Marchman in a 12-team league, it's going to be hard to move off the guy with 4 goals, 5 points in his
I
last
agree.
five, 14th in shots per 60. Um, the tough part is he's still, under 15 and a half minutes average time on ice. So whenever the hot streak wears off just a little bit, there's not going to be that kind of volume to really sustain him. But yeah, it is going to be really tough to move off Mason Marchment with what he's produced so far this season. A little bit less difficult to move off Jamie Benn, in my opinion. The on ice stats are still really good there. But yeah, it's a guy with a 49-point pace on the season. I don't know if he's honestly got much more than that in the bag. Logan Stankoven is a tough one to move off for me personally. Um, you know, again, depending on your league, if you're in a league where you can drop him and pick him back up, and probably no one will even know that he went to the wire, like yeah, for sure, you drop him in a 2-game week and you find a better streamer that's actually going to make your lineup throughout the night. But yeah, he again had a huge game here. I know he didn't crack the score sheet, but in 17 minutes 54 seconds he popped off for 7 shots, 12 shot attempts, 6 individual scoring chances. Like, this is what he's done on a pretty consistent basis throughout the young season here in Dallas. And as you said, getting more ice time now with the Sagan injury, you have to be interested in what Logan Stankoven is rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. To me, Ben, I think is an easy drop. No problem there, even with power play one. But yeah, it's a lot more difficult with the other guys. I think I like your point there with Stankoven. It's a guy that you could probably drop who maybe people casuals don't really know. Like, yeah, this guy's actually really, really good. And you might be able to pick him up later on in the week, right? To get him back on your roster. So yeah, that's my 2 cents there. But I mean, Marchman and Stankoven, they really fit what they're doing there in Dallas right now, which is with this rush play that they're kind of bringing to the table now. This is the wheelhouse for these guys. So and they're really taking advantage there with that all-time legend Matt Duchene, the best player in the league. I mean, it's it's been written. Okay, so let's move on there. But that's Dallas. That's what we're doing with those players there. Over to Washington, got some interesting players there as well. Tom Wilson makes this list just as a bubble player, but obviously that's format dependent as well. In a bangers league, you're not dropping Tom Wilson. There's no question there, but he's also putting up some points, isn't he? Like he's this guy's on a 63-point pace. That's pretty damn nice for Tom Wilson, and the metrics are not awful, right? So I'm interested to hear your thoughts there. Guys like Rasmus Sandin, I think you can easily bounce him. PLD, pretty much a drop, no question. Alexi Protas, Matt Roy. Talk to me about the Washington Capitals and what you're doing in particular with Wilson and PLD.
Yeah, Wilson is a tough one to drop. Getting all the ice time, got 5 points in the last five, so he's got that going for him. 72nd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, higher than that in the on ice numbers. That part looks good on a 30-goal, 62-point pace. Yeah, looks pretty good for Tom Wilson, kind of across the board here at the moment. As you said, it's not really a bangers league question. If you are in a bangers league, anything that has significant weight for bangers, you're absolutely keeping Tom Wilson. In a more conventional points league, and there definitely are people rostering Tom Wilson in more conventional points leagues because he's
Yep.
57% rostered on Yahoo as of right now. Yeah, that's where it becomes more of a conversation for sure. I'd be trying to hang on to Tom Wilson in a lot of those spots, but again, if it's a similar situation to Stankoven where you're like, yeah, I can drop Tom Wilson and he's probably not even going to get claimed. If that's your situation, then even if it's not Tom Wilson that you end up picking back up later on, it might be somebody else who's just as good, and you can feel okay with dropping him for a 2-game week like this. Pierre-Luc Dubois yeah, he's struggled again a little bit as of late. 284th shots per 60, 163rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. In the top 100 for both on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and scoring chances, 4 per 60. And yeah, 16 minutes average time on ice. So without the extra bonus of like 18 to 19 minutes time on ice, I think you can drop PLD for this week in most formats. He's just not quite bringing enough to the table where he's a guy that you're really going to regret dropping, in my opinion, at this point. So I would drop him, and then all the other guys below him on the rostered percentage chart, I guess, like the Sandy and Saprotas, the Roys, all these guys have no problem dropping at all.
Yep, get the hell off my team. No problem there. Obviously, Connor McMichael, we're holding him for this 2 game week. He's doing great. He's putting up a ton of shots as usual. This guy's a real player, folks. So one thing with
Yeah.
PLD, I think he really thrives, or he was thriving earlier on when Ovechkin was in the lineup. Obviously, like Ovechkin was a massive threat on his line, and PLD kind of was that supplementary piece. But without Ovechkin there, yeah, PLD is relied on a little bit more to get the job done. And that's just not a role that really suits him at this point in his career, in my opinion. So shout out to PLD. He needs Ovechkin back to get up to that 65 points that I projected, so we can, just stick it to Nate, folks. I mean, at the very least, we just stick it to Nate and that'll feel good for everybody, right? All right, we got to move on. There are 16 teams that play 3 games all on the heavy nights. But again, just remember, those heavy nights are an 11-game Tuesday, which you might be able to get a player in on, a 14-game Thursday, and a 15-game Saturday. That Thursday and Saturday are going to be write-offs. So if you got guys that are bubble players on these teams, they're going to be on your bench, right? So that's what Nate said rings true. You got to try and get those off nights early. Start your week off. Try and get these players on the off nights. It's better than taking zeros, right? So my 2 thoughts there. Let's move on. We got to cross the streams, Nate. The streams need to be crossed, and we are the ones to do it. This is our segment where we talk about the best teams to stream. And you know what I just realized, Nate? Actually, this is funny. Did you ever hear of that 10,000 hour threshold? Like, where the idea is if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're officially an expert at it. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of this, yes.
Yeah, well, you know what that means, buddy. We've become experts at crossing the streams. Man,
Recent
together.
milestone.
Yeah, well, I mean, 10,000 hours, that's nothing, right? I mean, we're probably in the 30,000 hour range, really. But so we're officially experts at crossing the streams, Nate and I in particular, and that feels really good, right? Almost as good as crossing the streams, right? That sweet relief. I mean, we're basically at a level now, Nate, where we don't even need a lake to stare out at, right? We can hit a shot glass at like 10 yards out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just nice to know that, you're probably the best at something. And I'm glad to share that honor with you, my man, my one, my only, my everything, NGN right here. Okay. But we got to get the biz, Nate. I'm sorry. You know what? I like to talk about crossing the streams, but this is a fantasy hockey podcast. Damn. We could do a whole podcast on crossing the streams. I think, would you be interested in that, Nate? Can I squeeze a little more of your time out?
um, that was interesting phrasing, but yes, I think the people would definitely love to hear an entire podcast of you talking about crossing the streams.
Guaranteed at this point in the podcast, people are like skipping. They're like 15 seconds ahead. What the hell? Shut the hell up, man. We cross the streams, folks. All right. This is a judgment-free zone. Anyways, let's get the biz. There are a couple teams that have, a good schedule that we've talked about already. Buffalo and New York both play 4 games with 3 off nights, and they both have the same exact schedule: Monday, Wednesday. So it's a great way to start your week. And then they play the Saturday, Sunday back to back. So let's dig in on Buffalo first here. And a player of interest for sure. I want to get your take on this. JJ Peterka. He's been moved down to line 2, which kind of stinks. And also power play 2. Which, yeah, we've been getting some questions about JJ Peterka. I advised someone to drop JJ Peterka recently, and it made sense in that situation. But I mean, he has to be rostered here this week, right? You got to get JJ Peterka on your team. I think he is going to get back on, that top power play at some point here. But speaking of that top power play, I think those are the guys that we need to be targeting here, right? And so we're talking about Dylan Cousins, we're talking about Jason Zucker, Bowen Byram now, right? Or Owen Power. So talk to me about the Sabres and how you're kind of ranking some of these guys that are on their team for this upcoming week.
Yeah, I still like Paterka the best, even with the recent demotion. I just don't think it necessarily lasts all that
Yeah.
long, and I still think he's by a decent margin the most talented of their forwards there that we're going to talk about here. Dylan Cousins would be next on that particular list, I guess. He's finally heated up just a little bit. He's got 4 points in his last five, 18 minutes a night. Underlying metrics are at least okay, if not exciting. On power play one, as you mentioned, Jason Zucker, the other one on power play one at the moment, seems to be always that guy getting that look whenever Lindy Ruff needs to fill a spot. Jason Zucker is there, like I just picture him like popping up beside the coach's elbow, like, "I'm here, coach. Put me in. Put
Yeah,
me
yeah.
in." And
He
he's
was
like,
pointing at
"Okay, you
someone else,
go."
but Zucker got in the way of the finger, and he's like, "Okay,
Right.
I'll go." He's like, "Oh, he's already out there. Damn it."
Yeah. But I mean, no shade to Zucker. He's been relatively productive, 16 goal, 50-point pace on the season so far. So yeah, he's found a role there and seems to be fulfilling it all right. So yeah, I think Zucker is a totally fine stream as well, especially if you're looking at it as Monday, Wednesday. See what happens, see if the lines change after that, and you can reevaluate for the back end of the week. I think that's a fine way to play it. I do think both Byram and Power are in play for this week. Both are going to get a ridiculous amount of minutes, 24, 25 minutes a night. One of the two is going to get power play if Darlene remains out of the lineup or not able to perform on power play. So one of the two is going to have a big boost that way. Yeah, keep watching the lines, keep watching the practice reports, try to figure out who that might be. If you can wait and make that decision a little closer to Monday, that's probably the best way to do it because I do think it's pretty up in the air at the moment. But yeah, if you have to make a decision today and you want my take, I guess I'd go with Byram, but it's razor thin.
Yeah, I think Zucker is probably the guy that most people in a competitive league, that's the guy who's probably going to be available because these other guys should probably be rostered already. But yeah, I mean, I think they all have their spot here. We should mention Zach the Butler Benson as well. He can do stuff offensively. And Connor Clifton, Miss Clifton, Miss Clifton, Miss Clifton. Anybody see Family Guy? All right. He bangs. He had a 9-hit game the other night. Sheesh. So, yeah, if you have any banger waiting, Connor Clifton is going to do that for you in spades. Let's move over to the New York Rangers. You should probably pick up Jacob Trouba. Oh, no, don't pick him up. All right, he plays in Anaheim now. So who's the Jacob Trouba replacement? Is it Keandre Miller? Is it Braden? What's that guy's name?
Braden Schneider.
Schneider. Yeah. I mean, who's taking his minutes, do you think?
Yeah, it is an interesting question now who could get those minutes and if there'll be anything there in terms of fantasy relevance. Because, yeah, I think Braden Schneider does make some sense there. Like the Ryan Lindgren, Adam Fox pair has been a pair forever. But now it's probably Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider, the way it was in this game here Friday night. And yeah, Braden Schneider, he does bang a little bit. He's not like extreme, but yeah, in a situation like this, if you're looking for some bangs, I think Braden Schneider could do a pretty decent job for you.
Yep. I mean, big time time on ice increase here in this game. Played just under 22 minutes. His last game, he played under 16 minutes. So, yeah, this is a guy that could get a little bit of run, certainly in a bangers league. You could do a lot worse. Let's talk about who I think is the best probably streamer for the Rangers. Is going to be Will Cooley. He's 42% rostered over on Yahoo. This guy, he's a metrics guy as well. Like in the metrics, some of the metrics that I look at, like zone entries and things like that, shot assists, chance assists. Yeah, he's doing that pretty well. And yeah, he plays on that third line pretty good. He's also a beefer, so he bangs. What about Riley Smith? He had a big game here against his former club here, the Penguins. I just dug into that. 6 shots on goal, 9 individual Corsi for, and 5 individual scoring chances for, playing on a line with Chicken Necks, Chris Kreider, and DJ Zibby. Mika Zibanejad. So, yeah, I think those are the two guys I'm probably interested in the most. And then you got to look over at Capo Caco and Philip Hedl on that third line and second power play. What do you think about the Rangers here? Is there anyone who's really kind of tickling your fancy, Nate?
Not too much. Like Cooley has been pretty productive so far this year. It does seem like it's trending the wrong direction at the moment in terms of the underlying stats that I'm looking at here. Yeah, it just seems like that is the general direction. Yeah, they've now reunited that third line, Hedel, Kako, Cooley, which is obviously not super beneficial in terms of the players to play with for Cooley or whichever one of those guys you might potentially be looking to pick up. Riley Smith, like I'm not excited about that one
No.
either, so don't get me wrong, but 60th in shots per 60 over the last 4 games that he's been in, so maybe there's a little bit of something there. He could get on a little bit of a hot streak with Sabanjad and Kreider, maybe. Um, Not impossible, I guess I would say, but I think, yeah, like Smith and Cooley are probably the top two, and then Kako and Keetle are the other two that you would consider. I think all of them are in play in deeper leagues for sure.
Yep. Yep. I mean, nothing super exciting. I'd rather go with Buffalo and some of those power play one guys if you can. But yeah, it's also like Jacob Trouba with him being traded and kind of some of the stuff he said coming out. Like it's hard to play when your name's in these trade rumors, right? And Capo Caco is another guy that's dealing with that currently. Chris Kreider, right? So I don't know. There's some turmoil there in New York, and it's a bit surprising, to be honest. This is sort of the way they're playing. It was nice they got the win here tonight on Friday, and hopefully that equals some a nice streaming week for us here for some of these players. All right, let's move on to the next couple teams here. There are two teams that play 4 games with 2 off nights, and they are the Anaheim Ducks and the Chicago Blackhawks. Anaheim plays Monday, and then they have Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back. Then they play that busy Saturday, where Chicago plays Monday, Thursday, and then they play Saturday, Sunday back to back. So let's start in Anaheim. We've done this before. We'll do it again. Anaheim has some nice streamers. It's just we got to pick the right ones, right, Nate? So in Anaheim, you're looking at, obviously in a bangers league, Radko Gudas, if he's out there, he shouldn't be in a bangers league. I don't think in a points league you're really interested in Radko Gudas. There's no point, but you should very well be interested in Troy Terry. Okay, he's getting a bunch of minutes and he's putting up a bunch of shot attempts, good scoring chances, decent shots. So I'm a big fan of Troy Terry. I think he's got to be rostered here for this week. I mean, getting that Monday, Wednesday start, it's it's zero risk for you to bring Troy Terry in there. I think it's an absolute ad for you. Olin Zellweger running power play 1. I like that. Leo Carlson is out there. I mean, when will he join the team again? Probably sometime this week, I would think. And then, the usual suspects, Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish, the fresh maker, Pavel Mintyukov, Alex Killorn, Ryan Strome. I mean, what are we doing here, Nate? Besides Troy Terry, how are you sort of ranking these players?
Yeah, it is difficult. There's no two ways about that. Honestly, the one I believe in the most is probably Olin Zellweger right now. But yeah, that's a tough ad
Yeah.
if you don't
Yeah.
need a defenseman specifically. So yeah, I guess probably you're looking at that top power play unit. They have run a little bit more towards actually using a top power play unit. Right now, that's Ryan Strome, Alex Killorn, along with Terry and Vetrano up there, and Zellweger on the back end. So yeah, you can look that way for sure. Um, yeah, I guess it's probably Strom. Yeah, it feels terrible to even even
Well,
suggest any of these
his
guys.
voice got high after he said Strome there, folks. That's not a vote of confidence, all right?
Yeah,
Strome? Was that a
yeah.
question, Nate? I don't know.
It was a little bit of a question mark that
Okay,
I
yeah.
added to it myself there. But yeah, I just want to highlight Zellweger again. I know he's not put up many points here in the last little bit, but 6th in shots per 60, 16th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 16th on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 23rd on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Underlying metrics are still absolutely there. Yes, it's Anaheim, and he may not be able to pop off the way that we would want him to for fantasy,
Yep.
but he is really showing us something here in the underlying numbers. And I want to be cognizant of that and be aware that this is the kind of player who can pop off, even if it is for just a game or two, and then goes through another long scoreless stretch because of the fact that he still plays for Anaheim. Yeah, I still think that's a valuable look in a deeper format for sure.
Yep, absolutely, buddy. It's none of this feels good. Like you said, Ryan Strome, I mean, he's probably gettable, and Zellweger as well, because they're power play 1 guys, but it doesn't feel good. And Killorn, oh God. Has anyone rostered Alex Killorn at any point this year? If you have, hit me up in the DMs. I want to know about you. I want to know more about you. I want to know what makes you tick, all right? Because something clearly wrong with you, okay? And we need to get to the bottom of this. Shout out to Alex Killorn. All right, let's move on to the Chicago Blackhawks. This is going to be an interesting piece this week here. It makes picking streamers a little bit harder because it's a brand new coach. We haven't even seen what he's going to do. So, this next Chicago game, that's a homework game for sure. Like that's why we mentioned that the top power play there. Those are the guys you obviously want to target. But yeah, Ryan Donato just probably, should be high on your list. Toivo Teravainen, if he's out there, he's going to get back on power play 1 there. He's been on and off. Nick Foligno, Tyler Bertuzzi, Alex Vlasic, Taylor Hall, Connor Murphy in beefer leagues. He's doing stuff and getting random assists here and there, which is pretty damn nice. And then Philip Kurashev, definitely a casualty so far. He's been moved off the power play. He was on there a little bit, but yeah, talk to me about the Blackhawks. I know it feels like Anaheim and Chicago. This is who we're talking about, and we're trying to get excited about this. Like, damn. I mean, who is it? It's got to be Donato, right?
Yeah, Donato's of interest for sure, just because of that spot. The underlying metrics look pretty good over the last 5 games. He's got 4 points in the last 5 games. Yeah, 24 shots per 60, 16th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Low minutes, under 15 minutes a night. But again, new coach, who knows what those minutes might look like under him. Definitely could be some shakeup there, and Donato seems to be feeling it at the moment coming in, so that's of interest. Kurashev I included just because he's on the Bedard line along with Teravainen at even strength in practice. So if that's the way they're going to go, then yeah, you can try that. It did work for a fair bit of last year, so I don't
Right.
want to completely rule that out. But yeah, Kurashev has not done much of anything so far this year. Does feel like last year might have been a bit of a one-off in terms of his offensive prowess. And then yeah, the second line, Hall, Donato, Bertuzzi, some interest there, but yeah, Bertuzzi being the guy who's also on power play one, you got to give him preference there. Vlasic on the back end, I actually do like. He's actually been quite productive, blocks a lot as well if you need that for your league. So yeah, I actually am becoming more and more interested in Alex Vlasic the longer that he continues to perform pretty well in this top power play role.
Alex Vlasic pacing for more points than Tyler Bertuzzi. Okay.
Yep.
What? And Taylor Hall. What? And I'm into it. Yeah, I've got the pickle in a couple spots because it was a schedule play, and he's just been playing well enough where I don't really want to drop him. And now we've got a decent schedule again. So with the pickle we ride. All right. What's your favorite kind of pickle, Nate? Are you like the Polskio Gorkies, or are you like one of these sweet pickle guys, one of those sickos?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm enough of a pickle connoisseur to really give a strong answer to this, but I do love dill pickle. I love pickles on burgers. Like that
Oh yeah,
is
buddy.
the best place for a pickle in my opinion.
You know what I don't? Oh, giggity. You know what I don't like though? Relish. What
No.
like pickles are delicious. Why is relish taste like hot garbage? I
Yeah,
don't understand.
agreed.
Don't put that on my burger. Get it away from my hot dog. All right. Shout out to the pickle people. All right, and Alex Vlasic. Anyways, let's move on. This is digressing. All right, there's 2 more teams we want to talk about here with decent schedules. Carolina, nothing could be finer, and the Ottawa Senators both play 3 games with 2 off nights. Carolina plays on the busy Tuesday, which is the 11 game Tuesday, so you might be able to get a Carolina player in. And then, as Nate said, they've got the best end to the week, dodging that busy Saturday, so they play Friday, Sunday. So it's a great end of week stream, but maybe you could just grab them early on and just ride with the Carolina players, right? That sort of makes sense. You might have to do that if you want to get them. And then Ottawa plays Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So let's look into Carolina and see what's going on there. First guy we got to talk about, Brent Burns. If he's out there, yeah, I think you could do a hell of a lot worse. I spent a ton of fab on Brent Burns in the Cacuffle League, which is a 14-teamer, and it's like I can't drop him because of the amount of fab that I spent. It's like the 0G thing. Like if I drafted a goalie really high, I'd be like, I can't drop you. And I spent way too much money on Brent Burns. But I mean, he still does stuff out there, but it's just he's a 30. I think I heard on the broadcast he's like 39 or something like that. Like he's getting up there. All right. He's still great out on the ice in terms of a real player. But yeah, like Brent Burns is on a 22-point pace. Okay. That's bad. That's very bad. So I don't know. But, in this type of week, Brent Burns can do stuff for you. Dmitry Orlov, Jacob Slavin, Maven. He's out there. I mean, if you need absolutely nothing from a defenseman, you can pick up Jacob Slavin. Jack Roslovic, the Cy Young Award winner. He's doing stuff. Jordan Martinuk, Jordan Stahl, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Eric Robinson. All right. That burner, that zippy Wile E. Coyote. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm picturing like when you run, have you ever ran so fast, Nate, that your feet just kind of spin out? Like let's say you have really flippy socks and you're on like hardwood and you're like, yeah, that's what I picture Eric Robinson when he's on the ice. Are you with me
Fair
on
enough.
this?
Yep,
Okay.
I can
All
see
right.
it.
All right, talk to me about why Jesperi Kotkaniemi is your favorite streamer of the week.
Wow. You got to give me more notice than that if I got to make up a reason to talk about Jesperi
Okay.
Kotkaniemi.
All right. Just start from the top. All right, just start from
All
the top.
right.
What are you doing?
Start from the top. Yeah, Orlov would be the guy I'd be most interested in of the three defensemen that you mentioned, Burns, Orlov, Slavin. I have no confidence in Burns whatsoever. 22
No,
point pace. Yeah, I,
garbage.
I just can't get into it. So yeah, if you are gonna grab a defenseman here, it would be Orlov. He's on a 44-point pace on the season. Underlying metrics are okay. Nothing exciting. None of these guys are super exciting. Roslovic got back on the top line, the Svechnikov Aho line in practice as of today. So that makes him have some interest for me. Yeah, aside from that, it's really tough to get interested in any of these guys for any length of time. I guess Eric Robinson has performed really well alongside Nietzsche, so maybe you want to look that way. That feels really speculative to me. I don't think I'll be making that move myself unless absolutely forced in a very deep league.
Yeah, that's slim pickings for sure. If you are looking though for like the power play two guys on this team, Jackson Blake's out there, Jack Drury, and Jack Roslovic. Those are the guys. Like I think Drury and Robinson and Jackson Blake are deep league options, but I don't know. They can do stuff. I mean, the offensive acumen on Jackson Blake. This guy's a real player. I mean, obviously he's has not a lot of experience in the league, but if for this type of week, you might be able to get something out of these players. So I should shout them out. Yes, Barry Kotkaniemi. I mean, I like him for 45 points. What more can I say? But he's I think he'll be back with Natchez at some point here in the year, and he'll probably hit that 40 to 45 points that I prognosticated. Right, Nate?
Uh, Kind of doubt it, but we shall see.
Oh my God. All right, let's move on there. All right, enough of Carolina. Um, all I have to say anytime I get shut down is just say Natchez. I just say the word Natchez, right? And pretend like I knew what I was doing. All right, let's talk about Ottawa here. Some pieces, some bits and pieces. Obviously, we got Josh Norris, who I think is a really strong ad with what he's doing out there. I mean, a couple goals the other night, really like that. Adam Gaudette, this guy's come out of nowhere, putting up kind of that Cy Young, Jack Roslovic type season as well. Gaudette has 12 goals and 1 assist in 24 games. So he's definitely not out of place. He's putting the biscuit in the basket. I like to see that. Someone who's really not doing well, Shane Pinto, the Pinto bean. Oh God, he's more like a lima bean out there. All right, he's the lowest level of bean there is, and he causes a lot of stomach upset. All right, for me personally. So I don't know. I'm going with that. He's very cruciferous. David Perron, yeah, he's injured currently, but check his status. He's a guy that'll get on power play 2. Obviously, we know is a great power play 2 or power play performer. Ridley Grieg. I mean, what's the best thing about Ridley Grieg? He's dual eligible in Yahoo. So there you go. And then buddy, Nick Jensen. I mean, just put some respect on that man's name. This guy won Nate a week. I mean, what say you, Nate? Talk to me about the Senators. Obviously, Norris is our guy here. What about the other guys?
Well, I was gonna say obviously Nick Jensen is our guy
Okay,
here.
I love that. I'm here for that.
Number one streamer on the week with a bullet. Now, obviously, I'm gonna have some love for Nick Jensen after what he did for me, but yeah, Josh Norris is the guy. I really find it hard to believe in Adam Gaudette whatsoever.
Yeah.
Shane Pinto, maybe I could believe in if his metrics weren't absolutely putrid at the moment. Yeah, you gotta find some new adjectives when looking at these lower end Ottawa
Yeah,
players
you really
because
do.
the metrics here are truly atrocious. So, not super interested in anybody beyond Norris, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, Adam Gaudette, these numbers are insane. Just on the season, he's got a 93% IPP, shooting 36.4%. Okay, he truly is a hockey god. He's doing something divine out there, and I'm here for it. So yeah, he's playing on the top line though. That's kind of nice. I mean, he's out there doing stuff. Oh, he was anyway. Now I gotta look it up. Oh God, no, he's not anymore. Whatever. All right, forget what I said. But he was playing with Timmy Stutes there for a little bit. Now Ridley Greaves up there, so that's fine. Neither of them are good to go. Let's just agree on that, buddy. That's it for those players. We got to talk about the Patreon. Tell us about that Patreon and how you can give some sweet value to our listeners here.
Yeah, so for $2 a month, that'll get you access to patron only live shows. I've got another patron only live show coming up this upcoming Monday, so that'll be a good time for all on the 8th of December. I do the live stream, the Puzzling Players live stream, and then I do the patron only stream in Discord after that. So if you want to get in for that and see that live, then get yourself in the supporters tier before Monday. For $8 a month, the Apples tier, you get the Patreon only live shows, you get the Patreon only Discord channels, you get show notes, including the notes to this show and the flagship show, and you get the player evaluation tool, which, as I mentioned every time, is what Blake and I are using, what we're talking about when we're pulling all these last 5 game metrics and season long metrics. That's what we're using to get that. So if you want that in your life, you can get that in the Apples tier. And then for the true degenerates, the Genos tier, $15 a month, gets you all the Apples tier perks and gets you every single question answered, guaranteed by yours truly. Blake, are we ready for some dream streams?
You know I'm ready, buddy. And you know what? If you can afford the $2 supporter thing there, for free, just send me your information. I can call you at home and we can just talk. You know what I mean? Like if you just want to have someone on the phone while you fall asleep, I'm happy to do that as well, right?
Excellent.
Oh, thank you.
That's
All right,
true
that's
service right
very
there.
creepy, and we'll edit that out later. All right, that's fine.
All right, so the Dream Streams is basically where I rank the players for you. Points league, hits, blocks, whatever you need. Try to put together a little ranking for the good people, the good listenership, the good viewership of the podcast. Number one for me, as I mentioned, JJ Paterka. I think it makes sense here. Still high on the talent. It's been a little bit of a rough stretch for him, but I think that by and large, you're going to be pretty happy with what he brings to you over the course of the week. Dylan Cousins, Jason Zucker behind him. I feel reasonably confident about this order, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I do like that. Then Will Cooley, I have here as the best of the Rangers, who also obviously have the 3 off nights. Then I am going to go to a 2 off night team and grab Troy Terry here. Terry's underlying stats have been really good as of late. I don't need many excuses to put Troy Terry high up my rankings, so there he is. Bowen Byram, Owen Power, we've talked a lot about, picking one of these guys, whoever we think is most likely to get power play 1. So I'm going to include both here. Riley Smith in his current situation on the second line for the Rangers, I think makes sense as another option. Zach Benson and Philip Hedel, going down to the third line there for New York. But I think, you can get some scenarios in which any of these guys could get their lines changed around, and that would really affect their value. So do be cognizant of that if you're making those ads. Blake, you got any bones to pick with my rankings here?
No, not at all. Yeah, it's really there's a couple teams to go with, and I think you've ranked them appropriately here. So there you go. Shout out to you.
Shout out to me. Best for hits, Will Cooley, obviously the tops here. Connor Clifton, as we mentioned, he does that. Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider, and Beck Mallenstein will give you some hits. On the block side, Owen Power, Braden Schneider shows up again. Condre Miller shows up again. Ryan Lindgren and Dylan Cousins, actually, he does that. Pretty surprising block numbers, actually, over the last little bit, especially. So if you're looking for a bit of an all-around guy, you got high blocks weight in your league, maybe you want to look twice at Dylan Cousins, maybe even above JJ Paterka in some specific scenarios. Anything on the beefers here, Blake?
No, just I love watching these men play. All right, just beefing into each other at all hours of the night. I don't know where I'm going with that. That's just kind of came off the top of the dome. Let's move on. We enjoy the beefers here.
All right, let's move on from beefing each other at all hours of the night into hold me. The players that we want to hold us in
Yeah, it's a
those
perfect
scenarios.
segue. Just a perfect
Perfect.
segue. Yeah.
Couldn't have planned it any better. I've got a massive list here once again. It is still Brian Rust and JJ Paterka at the tops of it for me. Igor Sharangovich also close to the top here. Pavel Buchnevich is a player that's been climbing for me under Jim Montgomery. Rob Thomas coming back really helps his case as well. So
Yeah.
Pavel Buchnevich is somebody I'm actually quite excited about. I think he fits well within this tier with these kind of top end guys that I think should be rostered in basically every league. Sean Monahan, Gabe Velarde, Logan Stankoven fits in here for me. we talked about it, the increased potential here with more ice time with Sagan out, and he has been able to make good on that in the early going, at least in terms of the shots, even when the actual points are not coming. Logan Cooley, Nick Schmaltz, Troy Terry, Pavel Dorofiev. That kind of rounds out another tier for me. Then you get into a little bit lower down: Josh Norris, Elias Lindholm, Matthew Nyes, William Eklund, Casey Middlestat, Alex Laferriere. Any major issues with the list as constructed, Blake?
No, definitely not issues, but I just noticed that Nazem Kadri is down under 50% as well. He's
Ooh.
49%. So I think that's a guy we need to have on our squads. Ross Colton is getting close to skating again. He's under 50%. So just shout out to those two guys. Also, I mean, Fabian Zetterlund. It's weird. Like, I'm just looking at some of these numbers here, but he's having a good year. I mean, the ice time's kind of all over the place in the last little bit, but those are three guys that I want to bring attention to as well.
Fair enough. Let's move
Oh,
on. Sub 20% rostered. Pavel Zacha finally had a nice game earlier this week. Dylan Holloway has really been showing out as of late. He was 19% when I pulled the numbers for this. Igor Chinikov still injured at the moment, so you have to check that. But they have kind of moved around some of the lines in the top six again. I do think there's a pretty solid chance that he gets back up with Monahan and Marchenko at some point in the future, and that would obviously be a very good spot for him. Marco Rossi really should be rostered more. I think he will be after this 3-point outburst. Voronkov here and Matty Beniers round out that list. Then if we're going sub 10% rostered, I've got Connor Zary, who I still think is actually quite an interesting player. Jason Zucker, I think he's gonna stick in that top six, probably a fair bit of top line and top power play exposure throughout the rest of the year. So in deeper formats, I do think he is rosterable. Barrett Hayton, Anthony Duclair still injured, but on his way back for the Islanders. Taylor Hall, Matt Coronado, Cutter Gauthier, Tyler Bertuzzi all have some interest for me. Anybody on this list that you want to add some additional verbiage to, Blake?
No, not on this list, but I do love Connor Zary. I think that's a great player there. Just really fun to watch as well. But there's a couple players that I think we can look at here. I do want to shout out Martin Pospisil. He's not doing anything, but his ice time's back up. Oh, he played a 19-minute game, a 17-minute game there. So shout out to Martin. All right, he's doing stuff out there. There was another player that I wanted to bring to your attention. I can't see it right now, so it's obviously not that important. Oliver Bjorkstrand. Yeah, we got to shout this man out a little bit. 5 points in the last 5 games, 16 minutes, averaging 16 minutes just over time on ice, 63rd in shots and goal per 60 on the year. Not terrible, but he plays for Seattle. So take it with a grain of salt.
All right, let's move over to defense. Top of the list for me is Olin Zellweger. Talked a little bit about him. The underlying metrics, he's been very consistent. Just really impressive stuff, honestly, for such a young defenseman. So I am going to keep him at the top of the list, and just hope that the team doesn't sewer him too much around him. Justin Falk, Lane Hudson here. Lane Hudson skyrocketing for me, getting top power play looks. You have to elevate him immediately based on that. So it was something that we speculated at the beginning of the season. Did not think it would come this quickly. Still may go back to Matheson, so take that into account. But definitely a good look for him. Jared Spurgeon getting top power play and producing with top power play, so that's a good look. Emil Andre top power play in Philadelphia still. Owen Power, Luke Hughes, Bowen Byram, Alex Vlasic, all these guys, have their own way of providing value at certain times, but may not be guys that you can roster consistently unless you are in a bit of a deeper format. Jacob Trouba, I am still interested in going to Anaheim. There's an outside chance that they just decide that he's like their new 25-minute a night guy, and that could be obviously pretty interesting, especially in bangers heavy formats. Oliver Ekman Larson, Timothy Liljegren round out the top 12 list here. Blake, any words on the defenseman?
Yeah, obviously I love Hudson. I think that's a nice piece short term. I do think Matheson is going to take that back. And I do want to shout out Luke Hughes as well. This guy's got 5 points in the last 5 games. He's number 1 overall in the last 5 games in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. He's looking good. The ice time's still not exactly where I want it, but it's nice that he's able to get some production with that kind of limited ice time that he's receiving.
Definitely. Sub 20% rostered, you do have Zellweger, Vlasic, Spurgeon, Andre Liljegren, as you mentioned. Throwing in Matt Roy and Simon Edvinson here. Roy has actually been shooting a lot. I know Washington does have that 2 game week next week, so it's probably not the right week to go out and add Roy, but a guy that you should have on your radar still, in my opinion. Moving over to the goaltenders. Peter Mrazek, Sam Montembeault, Elvis Merzlikins, Charlie Lindgren make up the top 4 list for me, and then sub 25% rostered. I think you want to look at Karelvich Melka, John Gibson, Mackenzie Blackwood, and Tristan Jarry. Anybody here, Blake, that's really popping your fancy at the moment?
No. And maybe Sam Montembeault. He's putting some good starts together, Obviously, but Montreal, like their defensive environment is terrible, so he has to stand on his head, and he has been. But that's not really something I want to rely on. But he's been doing pretty good, and obviously, you're a big Mrazek guy. I like him as well.
All right. Moving along, we will touch briefly on the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. Somehow Anders Lee is outscoring Kent Johnson. Lee has only played 2 games, but he's got 11.25 points. Johnson has played 3, and he's only got 5. So the sky is falling, and everything is pain. But hopefully Kent Johnson drops a hattie in the next game, and I can make this close at least. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. You got anything to say about how ridiculous this is, Blake?
Well, just that it's not that ridiculous, buddy. All right. You know what? These things I say, they won't be untrue. All right. I'm ready to go. Anders Lee popping the hell off. No, he's not. In fact, the Islanders, oh my God, that is a rough team to watch. But somehow Anders Lee has put together a goal and assist in the last couple of games. So shout out to you, my man. Thank you for your service.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, you should definitely click the link in the description. Join the Discord community. You can like this video if you're watching on YouTube. You can rate or review the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, comment, whatever you can do will help us out here. We do appreciate it. We do see it all, and we really do enjoy bringing this to you all. But that is going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band. They're there for supplying music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. And that's it, folks. Much love.